Hello, my name is Elizabeth Rimmer and I'm founder for EntrepreNurse. Welcome to my Wednesday live, and tonight I'm going to be talking about the 3 most common roadblocks to business. So let's get started. Okay, so it's the 3 most common roadblocks to business, and of course there's no point in telling you that unless I also add in a little bit about how to overcome them. So also going to be including some of that as we go. So this is what I would say information or my views on the kind of things that you lot have told me about over the years when you've been saying, oh, I'm thinking about starting something up, but then you quickly follow it up with a but this or but that, and this is my kind of summary of what those main buts are, if you like. So what we're going to do is just look at what I mean by roadblock, and then we're going to look at what those roadblocks are that I've identified, why they're a thing, why they're there, and briefly on each one, suggestions to overcome. So, moving on. Okay, so I really liked the picture for this. I thought it summed up quite nicely what I mean by a roadblock, that kind of deer in the headlights moment when you just think, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And in terms of defining roadblock, I mean, I would say it's not necessarily a bad thing, because we all encounter roadblocks, whether you want to call them obstacles, barriers, blockades, but that's kind of life, isn't it? We all encounter difficulties. Rarely do things go quite as they've been planned. The key thing is being able to kind of work around them, work out how to carry on without them posing too much of a problem. But roadblocks can sometimes be a good way to kind of stop and make you think, and we can't just kind of fly by and not acknowledge that there are issues. But the most important thing about roadblocks is, as I say, not allowing them to kind of cause such a problem that they actually end up inhibiting you from progressing through kind of fear or just sort of not knowing, what to do. So as I said, I kind of, in my experience, I've identified 3 of the most common things that I hear from you lot that are the reasons that you're not doing something, even though you've kind of expressed an interest or a thought that you might like to. So the 3 most common roadblocks for me would be time, something I called underdog syndrome, and having no plan. Okay, so those are my top 3, just kind of summarising the kind of comments and issues that I've chatted with lots of you about. So looking at the first one, time, so I always used to say, before COVID came along, that time was the new money, and what I meant by that was that, we're all kind of looking for time. We don't have enough of it. We're, constantly fighting against the clock. And I guess the, COVID pandemic has sort of changed that somewhat, in as much as even for those of us that are working, you're still really limited in what you can do in your spare time. So inevitably you end up with more time. So lots of people have been getting stuff done that they don't normally have time for, clearing out cupboards, whatever, working on their personal development, whatever. But it's still a weird concept, isn't it? I mean, literally, where have the last couple of months gone? I couldn't tell you. I mean, June. What happened to June? What happened to May? Time's an enigma, as my new saying for that. So it just kind of disappears. And I think one of the main kind of ways of stopping that time from sort of fizzling away and just disappearing is planning. And again, we're often very good at kind of planning when we're at work and prioritising and that kind of thing, because that's what we have to do, that's our job, and we get on with it. And if you're super organised, that might translate to home as well, but it doesn't always. So it kind of sounds like a simple one, but it's really important. There's lots of different tools that you can use to kind of help you with prioritising, decision making, all of that kind of thing. I like something called the Eisenhower matrix, which I've adapted a little bit. And the reason I've adapted it, I'll show you my adapted version. But on the Eisenhower matrix proper, you get these different categories where you've got whether something's urgent and important, or not urgent and important, or not important and urgent, or not important, not urgent. And the idea is that you're supposed to put your list of things that you need to do in the different categories, and it helps you work out the urgency and the prioritising side of things. Now, I always get really confused about those categories, I'm afraid to say. Some of them are obvious, some not so. So I've kind of developed it a bit more and made an idiot's guide, which is what I need. And it's simply do, decide, delegate and delete. So do, get it done. Decide, kind of needs a bit more thinking about, maybe you need to get a bit more information. Delegate, you're going to get some help, or maybe even get someone else to do it for you. And delete, you're going to bin it. So this is a tool that will be downloadable from the website shortly, but as I say, it just kind of simplifies, in my small brain anyway, that kind of prioritising process. And again, the key things I think around time, and I think where people kind of go wrong, it can be really sort of demoralising if you don't achieve what you plan. So I think the better you can kind of get to know yourself, the better you can understand what is doable and what isn't, will help you to plan, because it's much better to kind of underestimate, in my view, what you can get done rather than overestimate. Because if you get everything done and you've still got time for more, then that makes you feel amazing. If you don't achieve what you wanted to, it's really frustrating. You end up feeling fed up, demoralised, sod it, I'm not going to bother, and it just has a negative kind of impact. So trying to really grow that awareness, be really aware of how long things take. And I think crucial into that is building in what I call dead time. And dead time is just time when actually you'd allocated to do something, and actually you should be doing something, but your brain just isn't functioning in the right way. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure this happens to everyone, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a bit like sometimes if you're into training, you might go to the gym and you smash out your session, and other times it just feels hard and you don't know why. You've slept okay, everything seems fine, and that's just the way with the brain as well. So I think knowing that dead time is going to crop up every now and then is important, because it just does. Another thing that I've kind of managed to work with dead time, and I don't know whether it would work for you or not, is that I'm actually much better at recognising it now. So if I've got something kind of planned that I'm supposed to be doing, I'm sitting down on my laptop and I'm supposed to be working on something, and I've got that sort of dead time thing looming over me where I'm starting to look into people's Facebook accounts that I don't know, and friends of friends, and pictures of people I've never met before, and that kind of complete rabbit hole of wasting your life, then I'll try and stop myself and do something like a brainless task that I know needs doing. So whether it's the ironing, or sorting out a cupboard, or whatever it is, and that way you're kind of using that dead time. Yeah, it's not what you wanted to be doing, and you haven't achieved that thing, but you achieved something, and it's cut off that kind of, as I say, that rabbit hole thing where you just, especially on social media, where you just end up swamping through just brain-numbing nonsense. So that kind of works for me. I don't know whether it would work for you, but that's my little tip on kind of dealing with dead time. And essentially, I think it's just not getting too annoyed with yourself about that. So underdog syndrome. Now, look, this is one of my favourite topics. If you don't know what I mean by underdog syndrome, you need to check out my podcast. Underdog syndrome is, I believe, something that's really, really common to nursing. And actually, it does become a bit of a blockade to kind of progressing and doing stuff, especially for yourself, I think. So I feel that as a psychology and as a culture, that nurses do spend generally very little time on themselves, and over long periods of time that can mean that you start to lose sight of what your own kind of dreams and ambitions and goals are, because you're so busy looking after other people and thinking about what other people need before you, that it can kind of diminish those kind of, as I say, those dreams and desires that you have. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think also that nurses do suffer with this kind of guilt of sort of, again, kind of self-indulgence and, should I really be wasting time on, pursuing something that, isn't 100% necessary when I could be spending that time on somebody else, or, doing something that it's deemed that I should be doing. So that kind of feeling bad about spending time on something that perhaps isn't directly related to your work role, isn't directly related to your home role, whatever that may be. So I think guilt is kind of tied in with that, putting yourself second kind of thing, putting yourself last. Self-consciousness, just that sort of like, what, me? Who do I think I am kind of thing? Like, should I be doing this? Little old me, well, again, that can be something that can really sort of start to hold you back. Again, that whole sort of, as Shelley said the other week, that whole, well, hey, you're a nurse, like, get on with being a nurse. What else is there? So that kind of self-doubt and self-consciousness, again, holding you back. Fear of failure, which, everybody suffers with. But again, I think when you are heading into a real kind of corner, that can feel even greater, what if this doesn't go well? What if it's not successful? I'm going to look a right idiot. I can't do that. I don't want to risk that humiliation, that embarrassment. And gratitude, I think, for some, nurses in general, I think we do spend a lot of time around people that are in unfortunate situations, through ill health, and even if they're not physically unwell, we talked again a bit before about how people, will tell you their deepest, darkest secrets. So I think nurses have a real consciousness about how lucky we are as individuals, because we have a big awareness of the difficulties that some people encounter in their lives. So again, that's a great thing, but again, it can start to hold you back, in as much as I think it can make you feel like, I should feel grateful. I should feel really grateful for what I've got and where I am, and I'm lucky that I'm fit and well, and I'm working, and I've got my family, and I've got my friends, and And that kind of mentality again can almost be like a sort of a comfort blanket and a retreat from having to try anything new or put yourself out there. And again, the sort of feeling less of a nurse, in the want of kind of pursuing anything that isn't seen as conventional nursing. Am I still a good nurse? Am I less of a nurse because I'm having conversations about money, or, thinking I might like to do something that isn't necessarily all about everybody else, and that kind of way of thinking, as I've said before, it's a thing. It comes from the people around us. It comes from our own selves. It comes from other nurses.